Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Testing. 1, 2. Buckle my shoe. All right. Hello. I see we have a couple of visitors. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Are we live? Are things working? Yep. Okay. If I'm live, I'm live. Boom. Nice. Okay, we're 3 minutes from starting. I think I'll wait till I get some fair number of people, but and I apologize that this is not a fancier setup at the moment. It'll get better over the succeeding days. So I think I'm going to start. Let's see. Yep. Okay. Okay. Just discovered I lost my clock. So how are folks doing tonight? And where are you coming in from? We'll wait just a little. I've got I got 6 folks here, but I'll wait just a little for this. Okay, testing. We will just keep talking. we're Trans Rescue. We're a Dutch foundation that gets transgender people out of places where it's dangerous to be transgender. We've gotten somewhere around 150 people out of danger to date, last 3 years. And so right now we are doing, trying to help folks in the United States get out. And I think we're over a couple of minutes past the hour, and I'm going to go ahead and start. Hang on, I've got one last thing to do here. Well, hang on. One last bit of tech here. What do I have to do this? Slideshow. Does that get me somewhere back there? Show my speaker notes. There we go. Okay. All right. My apologies. We had a moment of technical issue there. But let's get started. So, we're Trans Rescue. We operate in all of these green countries. This is where we've gotten people out of. We've gotten about 150 people out to date. So that's who we are. We're proud of our record to date. Our message today is that you can get out. We have every bit of confidence that every one of you can get out. This session is our attempt to make a plan to do that. Hey, property of my cat. Hello. Okay. You're going to have to make a plan. And your plan is going to be determined by what you think is going to happen, which we may not all agree on. And it probably is less about what steps will happen and more about what's going to what time things are going to occur. So, for example, this is a family with a transgender member, and they've decided they want to make 3 plans. One is an immediate plan for a bug out, which I would encourage everybody to do, to have some plan for getting out if things go bad overnight. A plan, but then they say, well, realistically, we'll be in better shape if we take our time and try to get out by January 20. And it would be even nicer to have about 6 months. So Their plan is that over the next few months, they're going to start selling off property, and they're going to see how things are in December, and if things go well, then they may, then their plan is basically right near inauguration day to fly to Europe, backpack around, look for work. But if things look like they're going better, they may go ahead and interview remotely, let their child finish the semester, and work with their company on getting a transfer to the EU. So that's the kind of thing you want to do, is to make plans for the various contingencies. First step in every plan is that you must have a passport. We've been encouraging everybody to get a passport. We're still encouraging anybody who doesn't have a passport at this point to get one. By the way, if you have questions, just go ahead and stick them in the chat. We're happy to entertain questions here. This is a replacement for our one-on-one consult service while we've got such a high volume. And we know that this is about helping you guys. And at the end of this, we're actually going to pass out a special an email where you can actually get answers. We recommend if you're getting a passport, that you use the one-day urgent travel service. And to do that, you're going to have to demonstrate that you're about to travel somewhere outside the country. One possibility is you can arrange an inexpensive flight to Canada, or or if you're within reasonable driving distance, you can arrange some accommodation there. When I did this, they advised me that I needed a ticket of some sort, so I actually bought a ticket for the ferry in BC. But you will need some sort of a ticket to demonstrate that you're going to Canada. There is the normal passport book, and we certainly recommend everybody get that. There is also this card, and the card is intended just for people who are only going to Canada or only going to Mexico, and it's considerably cheaper. The book is $130. The card is $30. But we recommend you get both, which you can do. The reason for that is that you can that if you lose your passport, or if you have to turn it in somewhere to have a visa put in it, you are not without some form of passport, because this passport card does count as a passport. Don't worry too much about what gender or name is on it. You can live without those things if you have to. That's going to be a decision you're going to have to make, whether you are willing to let go of your passport at this time. Given the danger in the air, consider whether it's the moment to to apply with an X. And if you request it, you can get extra pages in your passport when you have it made. That's very useful, because many places will require you to have 2 blank pages in your passport to enter the country. If you have a visa conflict. For example, if you have traveled to Israel, there are some countries you cannot visit. And so if you say you're expecting to have a visa conflict, you can get the extra pages. So if you have a passport and you need to renew it, consider how much time you've got on. Having more time is always great. Many places demand that you have 6 months, but frankly, you will want several years at least. But again, renewing it means giving up your passport at this time. And again, whether you want to give up your passport in order to change your name and your gender on it is a call. If I already have a passport book, can I get a card as well without having to do a full renewal? That's a good question. I believe the answer is yes, but I would have to research it. If you email me and ask, I will answer that one. I currently have X as the gender on my passport. Should you get it replaced? I would say probably not. I'd say probably leave it lie. It's your call. How aggressive do you think these people are going to be? Most of the places that just won't take a passport with an X are not places you'd want to go anyway. Although, one place you can't go is you can't transit Dubai with that X passport. But, more to the point, if Trump cancels X passports, then... So, it's your guess. But, if it were me personally, I would not change it. And that's partially because if I had an X, I presumably am non-binary, and I'd want to be out about it. Okay. The next thing is to get emotionally ready to go. You presumably have relationships with family, friends, spouse, partners, and they're going to be having reactions, you're going to be having reactions, and you need to negotiate those reactions as part of a plan to get out. I speak to many couples, and quite often the dynamic is that one is ready to leave and the other one is not. There are a few things you can do. One is just recognize, oh, I'm in denial. I don't really want to think about this. If I pretend it's not here, I don't have to. Another is just figuring out that, I do need to sit down with my partner and talk about this and hear that they're not nearly as concerned as I am, or that they're not wanting to admit that it's real. So, many of us have complicated relationships with our families, and we're going to have to cope with those. If you are currently in the asylum system in the United States in the process of citizenship, but you don't have it, No, I would not recommend that you get a passport from your country of origin. That will demonstrate that you can still depend on the protection of your home country, and it will definitely mess up your asylum claim. Speak with your attorney before doing that, because that is not a good idea. So there are a couple of things you can do to deal with this emotionally. One is, this doesn't have to be a disaster. It can be a new adventure. I moved to the Netherlands basically because I didn't like where things were going in the U.S. And yet, gosh, wish I'd moved to the Netherlands 30 years ago. It's lovely here. If you need to get excited about living somewhere else, watch some travel videos. I'll warn you, some travel videos try to find their conflict and their excitement by being danger in wherever. And those tend to be less helpful, and the danger is often far exaggerated. But the other thing you can do is accept that some aspects of this are going to be painful. I have people write to me and say, I can't leave because I have a cat, or I have, and gosh, there are just some things you're going to have to cope with, and one of them is you may have to be separated from your cat. And you'll have to make a decision. Is that worthwhile? What is your risk or reward? What is your risk and what is your reward there? Finally, as you're planning, you're going to be doing some researching about countries, and make certain your sources are trustworthy. In particular, information about visas and immigration. There's a surprising amount of it that is completely useless. Favor official sources, and be careful of your scholarship there. What are we doing on? Oh, hang on. Is that? Okay, we're going to talk about some ways to get out. Anybody got questions? Feel free to stick them in. Ways to get out. One is to do what most people probably expect is the first way, which is to do a normal immigration. That is, find a work visa. We'll also talk about something called DAFT, and we'll talk about retirement. Another way is something called a rentista visa. This is a way to temporarily live somewhere and work remotely. Ways to get citizenship. Sometimes you can get out just by becoming a citizenship of someplace. And then something we call the hippie trail. There are lots of ways to kind of become a footloose traveler. Hello, we're getting more people in. New folks, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. That's what we're here for. So, you can live up against the border. This is a sort of I'm gone, but it doesn't look like it system. And then some ways that just won't work. Okay. The first is to find work overseas. Usually you find the job first and then you deal with the visa. The problem with this is that it can be time consuming and it's rather costly, so it depends on how much your job skills are in demand in whether they're going to be want to pay for this. And my apologies. Okay, and you'll have to excuse me. I've got to get this. I got to. Okay, back to work. And now I didn't. There's an review. Boom. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Back to work. And we're going to, I promise we'll get smoother at this as we go along. So usually that's a matter of the employer paying costs. The real problem is usually the time element. That is, it can take a long time to get through all of the paperwork for the work visa. So it's actually only occasionally a good way to get out in a hurry. Okay. Oop, hang on, I'm missing a slide here. There we go. Okay, we're back on retirement. If you are, of course, if you're approaching retirement, becoming an expat American living someplace cheaper is a very common pattern. But if you have consider that in some places you're going to be living on considerably less. You just don't need as much to live in the Philippines as you do in New York. So if you can you might be able to simply retire and live off of your savings somewhere. Or you might be able to go somewhere and essentially become an expat, working remotely or having some little side business, that kind of thing. So don't think of yourself as absolutely wedded to your career if you're going to move to a much cheaper place. The Netherlands has a particularly attractive offer. This is it's called the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. You take 5,000 euros, which is about $5,500. You establish a company in the Netherlands, which is a fairly simple paperwork exercise. You come to the Netherlands and live, and you can only operate the company. You cannot get a job, but that company can be a consultancy. So if you, and almost anything can be slipped under the rubric of consultancy. So Um, you do need to be a highly skilled worker, but highly skilled worker is usually just a college degree of some sort. So, so this is a pretty attractive option, a fairly flexible option. It's the one I'm personally using. And in theory, I'm a computer consultant. In practice, I'm more or less retired, and I'm running Trans Rescue full time. And occasionally taking some computer work. Another option is something called a rentista visa. This is an attractive thing. If you have some way... are there income requirements for DAF? No. You have limited access to social services, so you can't come here and then say, I am poor, give me housing and food, which most people can in the Netherlands. So you have, but on the other hand, you've got access to most services. For example, if you're in the Netherlands, you are required to have medical insurance. I'm an old lady. I've got various old lady problems, and yet mine is 124 euros a month. Years of experience. Yes, it's not your everyday Alex. I think you definitely can. That definitely sounds like it qualifies. In fact, I don't have a degree, but I have like 45 years as a software engineer. So, yes, if you can demonstrate substantive experience and demonstrate that you're going to have clients, I think that's not a barrier. Also, yes, you can continue working your current remote job, and all you need to do is that you would have to go to your company and say, I'm moving to the Netherlands under a DAF treaty. I am not allowed to be an employee, but I'm allowed to be a consultant. Can I be a consultant and just bill you? And being a consultant is fairly common practice in the software industry anyway. I've done it many times when I was in the U.S. So, yeah, Alex, I think you should have no trouble coming here under a DAF visa. So, on to rentistas. Excuse me. Darn. Okay, rentistas are digital nomads or remote workers. This goes by different names in different places. But the arrangement is basically, if you have a remote job where you are paid by someone outside the country to do remote work, then many countries will allow you to live there as long as you continue to get your income in that way from outside the country. You're not allowed to take a job at the local hamburger stand, but you're allowed to continue to edit video that's sent to you by a client in France. These schemes are often, they do have an income requirement. And the income requirement is sometimes a little odd. First of all, it can be many times what is actually required to live in that country. For example, I think Ecuador's requirement is 24,000 U.S. dollars a year, which is enough to live like an absolute king in Ecuador. And secondly, sometimes they require that it be from the same source and the same amount every month. So if you're a graphic artist and you have this stable of clients and your income's going to bob up and down a bit every month, then they may not be in favor of that. This depends on however countries are kind of figuring this out now, so it's in the process of being fixed. But yeah, Alex, so the rentista visa is a possibility for you too. Okay. Another method of going somewhere, weirdly, is to become a citizen there. There are some ways to kind of instantly become a citizen. The obvious but not all that frequently useful one is to get married to a citizen. This is fine as long as you're actually getting married to get married. Don't do a sham marriage. The immigration authorities in every country have gotten pretty good at figuring those out, so I don't really recommend a sham marriage. The dollar sign in the middle is is citizenship by investment. If you have the money to put up for an investment, and it's usually somewhere north of 100,000 euros or $100,000, you can simply be given citizenship in return for investing in a business in the country. However, and so that might not be realistic for most of us, except if you own a home, it's quite possible you have that much equity, and the business can be real estate. So if you simply move there and buy a home, that might qualify. So if you own a home or a business, this is something to investigate. There are places where the amount is lower. The lowest one I know of is $18,000, but it's Pakistan, so I'm assuming you don't really want to become a citizen of Pakistan. The other thing is that you might be surprised how little you have to be. The other way of getting a citizenship is by it's variously called heritage or descent. Basically, if your mother is from Germany, you may be able to claim German citizenship. And this goes back surprisingly far. For some countries, it's 3 or 4 generations. For many countries, it's 2. So if you have an Italian grandfather, or you're proudly Irish, it's entirely possible that you may be able to claim citizenship. This is a complex process, but we happen to have somebody on our staff who's an expert at it. And so if you think this applies to you, drop us a note. We can set you up a session with him. We have and we have an upcoming special information session on citizenship by descent. and investment. So, incidentally, we'll also be having one on Daft. So, Alex, you might want to attend that. Okay. All right. This is the next method. Is that if you feel like none of these sort of export myself and my career options are for you, remember that the world is full of young, college-age kids who are out exploring the world and hitchhiking around and hiking around and traveling and seeing the world. There is something called volunteer tourism. If you there are a couple of sites that we know of. One is something called woofing, willing workers on organic farms. There is woofing.net is the primary site for the international organization, but many national organizations have kind of split off and are independent. Basically, you sign up for the site. There is usually a charge. That's so that they don't have lots of instantly made accounts, because it's important that people kind of trust each other. But then you find a host. For woofers, this is usually organic farms. You go there and you are trading a few hours of work every day, usually farm work, for food and a bed. So if you have some sort of small income or some savings, this can be a way to live with very little expense for a long time. Another possibility is an organization called Workaway, which does much the same thing, but their opportunities are much more likely to be some kind of help care for elderly people in a developing country type things. And they're not quite as focused on organic farming as the woofing. But these are possibilities. And in many places, there are ways to make yourself an income with some kind of informal work or running the tourist stand. Once you get away from places people generally want to be, there's lots of opportunities out there. So, and there's a very large community of people who are all doing this, and you can just fit in with them. So this is another way to be there. You of course will eventually, if you're there if you're someplace on a tourist visa, that'll eventually end and you'll have to move on. But if you find, for example, a couple of adjacent countries that you have a good gig in each of them, you can just shuttle back and forth, and you can probably do that forever, or at least for the duration of however long Mr. Trump lasts. So, this is a pretty good option for many young people in the United States. Okay. All right. The next option is border life. You don't have to reside where you live. You can, for example, you can stay on a tourist visa. You're not required to have a visa to go to Canada. Technically, you're basically getting a tourist visa at the border. You can stay up to 180 days, and then you can either apply to renew that, or you can simply cross back into the United States. If it gets so dangerous in the United States that just the act of coming over to the U.S. for an evening would be dangerous, then Canada's probably going to be more accommodating with asylum. Any questions about border life? It's a kind of a weird thing to think of. One thing is that you must not look to the Canadians like you are working in Canada. So you'll need to retain a bank account and an official address in the United States. This can be a P.O. box or a friend's place. And then make it look as though you basically have a job in the United States. If you say you have a remote work in the United States, you're usually good. If you cross the border frequently, then you'd look like just one more person who crosses the border frequently. People who live in Seattle or Vancouver may cross the border multiple times in a week just because, the mall where they sell Beanie Babies is on the other side of the border. So, basically, if you stay near the border, it becomes pretty porous. Okay, questions about this? Okay, some ways that don't work. First of all, asylum. There is no place on earth that will take you as an asylee, as an American trans person. There is something called the 8 criteria test, which I'm not going to go into today, but that 8 criteria test includes things like you will be killed or tortured or imprisoned if you return to your home country. And at the moment, that doesn't apply to trans people. So I'm sorry, you simply cannot apply for asylum. You can apply for asylum, but you will eventually be turned down. And the experience of going through that process is not very good. Asylum is not a practical solution to anything for people in the U.S. I would invite you to realize that we are becoming outlawed. And I would point out that when you violate the law, you do open yourself up to being arrested. If you're out of status, you open yourself up to being deported. Out of status is the term for being someplace without the appropriate visa. So don't make it easy for them to, now that said, it may still be the best solution for you, but do consider that it can have downside. We've always felt like purchasing a firearm is not a great idea. You're not going to be able to take it with you. And And frankly, at the moment, money is a more valuable weapon. That's our opinion. Lastly, a thing that definitely doesn't work. Don't help a trans person who is a minor, who is under 18, to move. Even something as simple as giving them money to help them move can get you convicted of child trafficking, which carries a very long prison sentence. So don't do that. Not without their parents' permission. Some issues you'll have to overcome. You may have various sorts of commitments, people in your life, to your career, to your, you may have moral obligations, like you're taking care of somebody. You're going to have to deal with your possessions, and that may be harder or easier depending on how gracefully you do this. Is it possible to flee if you're under 18? Yeah, we can't help you do it. That doesn't mean you can't do it yourself. It is possible if you get your parents' permission, but I'm assuming you can't do that. So, you might have yourself manumitted. You can work with an attorney and have yourself declared legally an adult, and then you can go. But otherwise, you are. So. But is it possible? Yes, it's possible. That is. It's just not legal for any of us to help you. If you are getting disability payments, this is going to be complicated. If you're on SSI, they will not be movable. If you're on SSDI, it's a little more flexible. And in fact, oddly, being on disability payments can be a way to get out, because it looks to the receiving government very much like retirement. Many so-called retirement visas are actually just worded that you have an ongoing guaranteed income. So they're actually, I'm on a pension type of arrangement. I'm on a constant payment every month, and that can include a disability payment. You can move abroad with SSDI. And finally, money. And we will have a section on moving if you don't have a lot of money. And that's quite possible to do. I'd remind everybody that the majority of the world's refugees are people who don't have much money. So if they can do it, you can do it. Okay, we're coming up to the end of this. So, since everybody's listened to our spiel, we're going to give out our super secret email address where we'll be more aggressive about answering questions. So that's usaquestions@transrescue.org. And, all right. Your next steps are go to the relevant special sections of whatever you think is a possibility for you. Start doing your research. Get your loved ones on board. Formulate your plan and then carry it out. And I would say, don't dither. Once you have your plan, then carry out that plan. Divers have a saying, plan your dive and dive your plan. So, let's see, KB, can someone with only a U.S. green card and no other passport? Well, a green card's a type of visa. It's not a passport. I use some of these options, or would having received asylum in the U.S. open up the possibility to get it again elsewhere? Honestly, your situation is kind of complicated. I'm not certain of the answer to this at the moment. I would like you to email me at the USA Questions email and ask that, and put something in the subject that's like currently a asylee in the U.S. Needing to leave, and then we'll talk to you privately, because that is an unusual situation. And so, and honestly, I'm not quite certain where that's going to go, but we do have an attorney on staff, and he can speak with you. Okay? Do we have more questions? How are people doing? Yeah, well, thank you for sitting through my presentation. I apologize. I was a little flummoxed. I'm certain after I do this 10 times, I'll be better. And thank you, guys. Drop me. Alex, you can escape. I have complete confidence that you can escape. That's not hard. If you can swing a daft visa, you're in good shape. Otherwise, I think we'll call it a day, and I thank you all. So, take care, and we'll see you online, and we'll see you in email and what have you. And look for more special streams. We'll keep updating our calendar as we see what people need. This is the first one of these. And if things slow down, we'll start offering consults again. Okay? Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.